for December 6th to order. The first thing on the agenda is a special award. Trustee Geis.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that are here tonight, it's with my great pleasure that I am going to present this to Lieutenant General retired McCausland, who served at our port for many years. And he was one of my mentors when I came to the board. I'm very happy to tell you all that. I learned a lot from Chuck, especially how to stay calm in some very contentious meetings that one time we had. And so I'm very appreciative of that. I'm so glad he and Gwen could come out tonight. The lovely lady in purple is his wife, who's also a friend of mine. And he contributed an awful lot to this organization, and I'm so pleased he could get this special recognition tonight. So if we all give him a round of applause.
Yeah.
I'm out for picture. I'm out for picture.
We'll stand up. We'll stand up to you, Joan.
Cheryl, you can smile. Don't do that very often.
Yes.
I'll take your purse. There, good.
Now he's fine. Hold this.
Yes, you can hold it.
Oh, boy.
And I want one too. So I don't have a picture. So let me see the plaque here. Oh, sure, yeah. Yep. Oh, yes, yes, you can hold it.
Is there anybody else who would like to give mine?
Good? Thank you.
Would you like to say a few words?
Just a little bit.
Okay.
I appreciate this. Thank you very much. When I got involved with the college, it was in 1992 when I moved back here from Washington. And we didn't know anybody. And it was really a great way to get into the community and start to know people and such as that. I put community colleges into Google, and you got some of the stuff I didn't really understand. I spent 35 years in the Air Force. And Google tells me that the Community College of the Air Force is the largest community college in the United States. And they're in the 300,000 or 400,000 number. And it's, when you join the Air Force, you go through basic training. When you finish basic training, you get a transcript all set up for you to start your education. And the Army, it wasn't real clear, but I don't believe the Army or the Navy has ever done that. Set up that system. They do. It did say that they had Army and Navy students join if they happen to be geographically in the area. But it's great for getting students or getting people to join the service, and then you have this as a benefit. And there's no charge, so it's a free education. So I thought that was sort of interesting. And my Air Force time was all in logistics, and I wasn't even aware of that. So I learned this well. Very good. Thank you very much. Thanks, Rose.
Thank you, Chairman Geis. Next is the November 1st minutes. Any questions, concerns, edits regarding the minutes from last month? All right. And then now we have the enrollment update. Dr. Urbatus? Thank you.
Another round of applause.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So in your packet was the final fall 23 report and the initial winter report. Deborah is going to be covering the fall report later in this session, so I'm going to leave fall and give you an update on winter as well as spring. Okay, so winter session enrollment as of this past Friday overall, we're down 17.8% in both matriculated and non-matriculated. And what I'd like to share about that is I had Michael Fisher run a course report comparing this year to last year. So, for example, a year ago, we had 69 registrants in nursing courses. This year, we have 1. So it may be a timing issue in terms of individuals stepping up at like nursing program registering in one fell swoop. So I'm not overly concerned at this point, just for your information. And there are other course offerings, subject offerings that are down as well. And hopefully that will pick up between now and the mid to late December when winter session begins. Any questions about winter session? And I'll move on to spring. Okay, spring. As of this past Friday, we're up 5.3%. New student enrollment is up 18.3%. Transfer enrollment is down 12.9%. Continuing enrollment is up 3.2%. Returning student enrollment is up 3%. And dual enrollment, non-Gemini, so these would be early college scholars, is up 90.9%. So 63 students enrolled thus far for spring compared to 33 a year ago. So overall, grand total is we're up 5.3%, which is good because we began new student registrations 2 weeks ago. So any questions about spring? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we have a presentation on modalities by Dr. Ortiz.
Good evening. I am pleased to share with you a brief presentation to update you on our work on instructional modalities here at the college. So very briefly, as I know, we have approximately 10 minutes and I have 2 minutes per section. So quickly, we're just going to do brief definitions of the delivery modes, the modalities, both for SUNY and at here in the college, and then talk a little bit about the implementation and communication thereof. So course modalities in terms of definition are the ways that instruction is delivered. So they're usually defined by these different parameters. So for example, in terms of timing, one of the distinguishing features is whether it is synchronous, happening in real time, or asynchronous. Also, in terms of the location, you'll often see that it's referred to either traditional or online. So traditional is your face-to-face classes, typically in a physical classroom space versus online. And that leads to the interaction, whether the interaction both between the faculty and the students or the students to the students is taking place face-to-face or virtually or virtually. And then finally, the last component is the flexibility. So this is in terms of how the students engage with their learning, right, around timing, location, and then interaction. So briefly, there are 6 modalities that are identified by SUNY, and this is what we base our reporting on. So the 6 SUNY codes are not online, asynchronous online, synchronous online, combined online, hybrid, and high flex. So in this next set of slides, I'm going to share with you the SUNY definition and then how we're looking to define those modes, those modalities here at the college. So this is a work in progress. I know you have this image in your packet, and I think it does a nice job of visually explaining the differences between the modalities in terms of those defining factors. So as you can see, high flex being at the top is basically all of those factors rolled into one, right? So in terms of the location, the flexibility, and the interaction. Hybrid is a blend, and then high flex is all. In terms of the definitions, as you saw, SUNY indicates that face-to-face instruction is that there's no direct instruction, right, delivered online. So we're looking at all instruction delivered in person. For asynchronous online, so this is when there is not established, right, times and locations. It's all delivered 100% online. And so what we're working to do, and these are in process, is identifying what that definition is for our students, for our college. So we are looking to describe, right, that all instruction is delivered via Brightspace, which is our learning management system, and allows our students to engage with their learning, right, at their convenience, but very importantly, within the parameters established by the instructor. So asynchronous online does not mean whenever they want to, but rather within the parameters established by their faculty. Synchronous online is when the instruction is delivered at a specific time but virtual. So the days and times are established and the interaction, the instruction is delivered real time. Currently, we use WebEx, right? So via WebEx. Hybrid is a blend of both face-to-face instruction and asynchronous online instruction. And so this is what we're working through right now. As you can see, SUNY's definition is exceptionally broad, where they have that anywhere from 0.01% to 99.9% is what makes it fall into this section. But that does not provide us with healthy parameters for our students, for our faculty, for scheduling, for optimizing space. So what we're talking about right now is establishing parameters around the amount of instruction delivered face-to-face versus online. So we're continuing to work on that. And high flex, as I mentioned, again, the descriptions are basically the content, the meaning is the same. But for our definition, we just personalize it to the college, making sure that folks know that students, that each day they can decide if they want to come in person, if they want to WebEx in, or if they want to view the video and engage with their learning asynchronously after the class. Thank you. So in terms of implementation, right, it is really going to take the efforts of most units at the college to make sure that the definitions, the modalities, the scheduling, the advising, the technology, that everyone, and very importantly, marketing and communications, to make sure that there's consistency in information across all of our modes at the college. And finally, this is where we will be looking to communicate out that information through our marketing materials, of course, in the catalog, the class schedule, the faculty's class outlines, the syllabi, the course type. So when you're searching for a course, that you're able to identify it by the modality, and then finally on our website. Whoops. So, are there any ideas, thoughts, questions?
Lord, it's great having definitions for all this stuff, but it's all teaching students. And at the end of the day, how is this going to impact the students? We're giving them more terms to try to figure out more things to be able to understand. How is this going to, will it in turn get to student success somehow? I mean, can you
Yes,
package that
no,
up for me a little?
thank you. No, that is an excellent, so actually right now, because we don't have consistency in how the modalities are identified, it's actually more of a barrier right now because people aren't always sure what they're signing up for. And also, in order to be able to take, for example, multiple classes in one day, if there aren't some guidelines, you know, they may have a one-off required face-to-face meeting that then prohibits them from engaging in other classes. Another factor is with space utilization. So we know that our prime teaching times, right, between 9 and 2, what we're able to do with, for example, the hybrid modality, if it is defined, then instead of offering one section, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 o'clock, we can offer 3 sections. So there's a lot of optimization that can help, and also for the students, knowing and understanding what they've signed up for when they register.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have one. Is there a correlation between grades or student performance in each of these modalities?
So the success data is available. However, it is a little challenging because we don't have them clearly defined right now. Like, we can share the difference between online, like asynchronous online and face-to-face, but some of the other ones, I think are a little bit hard to decipher.
Laura, can I add to that?
Yes.
So there's also, this will help because it cleans up the database too that we report on. And as, Dr. Ortiz mentioned, that the SUNY guidelines are not particularly helpful, for reality based. But one of the other issues that we'll need to sort of get into long-term is in mixed modalities, like a high-plex. Even with the database cleaned up, there's not really a way for us to say how many students attended synchronously, asynchronously, or in person on any given day or on any, right? So there are always going to be some limitations around what we can answer specifically with data, but this will for sure help us more broadly. For a long time, we have disaggregated by the sort of 3 major modalities, which is online, face-to-face, and concurrent enrollment in our sections. And we do that both within our institutional data, so courses, stats, retention, things like that, and as appropriate within, student learning assessment, so looking at individual, student, learning within a particular course. This will help us take that a step further, but there will always be some limitations to what we're believing.
Yep.
As the raises, you've tipped on something I'm curious about, and I'm not sure anyone can answer this.
Mhm.
Is this more prevalent in the 2-year colleges than the 4-year colleges for SUNY? If SUNY's deciding this, do we have any sense of how much of that is going on in the 4-year colleges?
A greater movement in recent time in 4 years. Because COVID was a disruptor
Right.
that they responded to. Many community colleges, but not all, were certainly looking at different modalities pre-COVID. And that was absolutely something we were doing ahead of COVID. I do think broadly, SUNY has been spending a lot of time in the last year or two talking about residential students, and how that will play out with student choice, I think is an open question in 4 years, because broadly the student choice trend, not just at FLCC, but nationally, is to have a more mixed approach, or a more sort of combination, to use the term hybrid, but not the only modality, hybrid approach to scheduling. So I think there's a question out there about whether or not the SUNY strategy to focus on 4-year residential students will make sense. That's not the national.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think you'll find that it's a mix across the spectrum, and you'd have to disaggregate the privates, the 4 years, regional versus non-regional. Those that are already well ahead in terms of hybrid and online types of learning, those that aren't. And I think that we're all in the new great frontier of what things will be in the future. It's going to be a decade or two before it normalizes to what folks are looking for.
I totally appreciate that, and that it's all evolving. I'm just curious about specifically SUNY,
So,
4 years versus
Yeah,
2 years, and that being, my sense is we've been on this path for a while and dealing with this for a while, and it requires resources to do that. And I'm just curious how SUNY's conscious of the differences between the two institutions. So bigger conversation for another time. Thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns regarding modalities? Okay, thank you. All right, you're up again.
Yes, I stay right here.
All right, rescind the resolution number 77-2023.
Yes, thank you. I would like to present the resolution to rescind the resolution as Santa just mentioned, which was recognized after the meeting that it had been presented in error. So for that reason, we are requesting that it be formally rescinded tonight.
Any questions or comments regarding that?
Do you need a formal motion to do that, or?
Oh, we do that during. Yeah. Okay, so moving on, approve tenure track faculty reappointments.
Yes, so thank you. This evening, it is my great pleasure to present to you the resolution to reappoint the following faculty. And I would like to mention that these individuals are going through the tenure process, and we have received recommendations from their tenure teams to support their reappointment, which will all become effective August 28th, 2024. And if I may, I would just like to read their names as they are, this is very important work that they are that they are going through. So Melissa Kellogg, nursing, Melissa Langworthy, nursing, Derek Brake, social science, Ali Kala, conservation, David Caruso, social science, Nicholas Bargnoli, humanities, Sarah Heidi Brake Bruno, humanities, Lynn McNamara, nursing, Adriana Musedola, visual and performing arts, Katie Sheffer McCool, nursing, Tomas Gonzalez, business, Tiffany Layden, nursing, and Beth McCabe, humanities.
Thank you. Any questions or comments regarding those approvals? Okay. Grant tenure status.
Thank you. So the granting of tenure is one of the most important and important professional milestones in the career of a faculty member. And it is truly my privilege and honor to recommend and support the recommendation to grant tenure to Jocelyn Bush, instructor of nursing. She has brought a wealth of knowledge and dedication to teaching and learning and holistic student development. And so it is with my greatest support that we present her for the award of tenure this year.
Good.
Any questions or comments regarding that? Okay. Thank you. All right, next we have Grant Professional Association Administrative Appointments. Dr. Urbatus?
So we have two administrative appointments this evening. The first is Janine Eckenrode, Geneva Campus Center Director, and Janine is not able to be with us this evening due to another commitment. But it's my pleasure to recommend Janine to receive her administrative appointment. Her day-to-day oversight of the Geneva Center involves collaboration with academic affairs and academic and student affairs, workforce and career solutions, adult basic education, and the EMS program, as well as students, faculty, and staff. And the purpose of her oversight is to foster a community within the center and meet students' needs with regard to course offerings. Janine serves as the co-chair of the Geneva 2030 College and Career Readiness Action Team and works closely with Greg Baker, who is principal of Geneva High School, on the action team. Their collaboration on the team has resulted in the implementation of the successful Career Chat program, which was implemented last year and has really taken off this year. And Santa was a speaker as at one of the career chats. So thank you.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful program. They're getting very strong participation. So in addition, Janine was successful in writing and obtaining a 3-year AmeriCorps Vista grant in collaboration with Hobart and William Smith colleges and the Geneva City School District to fund a full-time pre-college advisor position located at Geneva High School, which reports to her. The pre-college advisor is focused on college and career readiness activities for high school juniors and seniors. She facilitates an active Geneva Campus Center Advisory Board that meets twice annually and provides input on the center's programs and services, as well as opportunities related to additional services and enrollment growth. She has been instrumental in developing and implementing a community education program for residents of the greater Geneva community. Courses have included conversational Spanish, American Sign Language, 3D printing, writing in nature, and the history of the Finger Lakes. She has facilitated crucial partnerships with community agencies and organizations such as Geneva Reads and family counseling services of the Finger Lakes to support our students. Janine works collaboratively with the Newark and Victor Campus Center directors in developing and implementing the annual summer STEAM camp program. And in closing, the Geneva Campus Center is in good hands with Janine as the director. She's a strong advocate for the center, our students, and the community served by the center. Thank you. The next recommendation for administrative appointment is for Matt Stever, our Director of Admissions, and Matt is with us this evening. And I'm very pleased to recommend Matt to receive his administrative appointment. Matt is a graduate of Broome Community College and embraces the community college mission in all that he does. In the past 5 years, Matt has demonstrated strong leadership in elevating the admissions office operations and mentoring a brand new team, with the exception of one person who has been with him, who was in the office previously. Little did he know when he assumed the role of Director of Admissions in 2019 that the COVID-19 pandemic loomed in the spring of 2020.
Lucky you.
He and his team were able to successfully pivot operations to accommodate the pandemic in-person restrictions and strove to meet the needs of prospective and admitted students, as well as high school counselors, through virtual platforms. Throughout COVID, we were able to sustain enrollment due in large part to Matt's leadership of and engagement with his team and other college partners. Matt assumed responsibility for the implementation of Slate, our customer relationship management software, which has significantly elevated our communication strategy with prospective and admitted students, resulting in increased yield of new students on an annual basis. He has facilitated an active high school counselor advisory board, which meets twice annually. The advisory board has provided valuable insights into how the admissions office and other areas of the college can support counselors and high school students' needs in the college-going process. Matt has also participated in the inaugural year of Leadership Ontario and served on the steering committee as a program alumnus. Last year, he participated in the Peaks Leadership Program, which comprises 4 community colleges, Finger Lakes, Mohawk Valley, Onondaga, and Tompkins Cortland. On an annual basis, we can nominate up to 4 individuals to participate in this program. Being selected to participate in the program is an honor. Matt currently serves as campus facilitator for the program, connecting with our current participants and his liaisons at the other community colleges. In closing, FLCC is extremely fortunate to have Matt as our Director of Admissions. He is a consummate professional. His content knowledge and market expertise are impressive, and he is most deserving of the administrative appointment. Thank you. And thank you.
Congratulations to all the appointments this evening. The next item is the 2023 Finger Lakes Community College Fall Enrollment Report. Gerloff.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all again. We're gonna wait just a second while Jeff gets up the PowerPoint. I'm gonna be referencing materials that you have in your board packet and also hot off the presses, this addendum that we provided this morning or this afternoon when you came in. But I figured we didn't want to go through 70 pages piece by piece.
Darn.
So in light of that, we're going to look at a few highlights through the PowerPoint up here in just a second.
No question.
I lost my mouse.
No worries. Happens to me all the time.
They run off in the corner.
So while Jeff is getting that ready, let me just take a quick moment to thank my wonderful team of data analysts who put this together. It is not an easy feat to do all of this. And I will also just give a quick shout out. We have been building a data warehouse for the first time here at the college. That work is being primarily done by David Walker, our data analyst. And we were able to turn this report around in 2 weeks, as opposed to the 4 to 8 weeks that has taken us in the past. It is a monumental shift in practice for us to be able to more easily query and do that kind of work. And the long-term benefit to us will also yield more accessible data, which, as you all know, is an ongoing struggle here at FLCC. So I very much appreciate that work, and I'd like to just sort of publicly acknowledge their great work to get us all these good things to build strategy from and think about. All right, so you'll see up on the screen the PowerPoint, and I'm gonna grab the clicker here, which I know is gonna work.
Of course it is.
There we go. Okay. Oh, people at the end. Okay, I'm not sure why that's in the middle of my pretty little graphic there, but we'll we'll persevere. So the enrollment report every year looks at trends primarily year over year. And we're going to continue to, why is it? We're going to talk about some of those year over year trends like we always do, sort of where are we, who are we serving right now? But I'm also going to spend a little bit of time contextualizing some of that within the 5-year realm that we now are able to look at. And I think that's a really important piece, because when we're talking about strategy development, we really want to be careful that we're understanding both the current and looking at that and what that might mean, and also understanding the trend. And both of those pieces are important for developing strong strategy and for making good and appropriate decisions. So when we look at this year, this fall, we have this particular breakdown that you'll see here. And what I want to talk about more specifically is, you know, what does that really mean? So overall, you've heard Dr. Abetis talk for several weeks now about our overall increase. But what you'll notice there is there's a 2.4% overall increase in headcount, number of human heads on campus or in our classes. But that translates to an FTE increase of 5%. And that is a fairly significant difference between those. And that's because for the first time since COVID, we have reversed our trend of part-time enrollment outpacing our full-time enrollment. And I think that's a really significant thing to point out. I know you have heard me say for several years now, I think this might be a COVID trend, but we don't know for sure, because we're in the midst of it and we're not sure what is going to stay, what is going to go. And from the beginning, it made a lot of sense that that trend towards part-time instruction had a lot to do with what was happening sort of in the world around us. And we really are beginning to see that for the first time more fully and in a fairly dramatic fashion. Most of the time, your FTE and your headcount are pretty close together. And when we see that big of a difference, that indicates that much of that new enrollment, much of that 2.4% is coming from full-time, which you see in that new category as well. Okay. And then the other piece that I think is interesting is sort of the shifting of these categories, right? This idea that we're moving new students in and having a lot of new students, but we're also seeing a increase in our continuing student, and that should actually read continuing and not returning on your screen there. What that indicates to us is, one, we're successfully bringing in new students, but
we're also maintaining those students. And we'll see that at the very end of this presentation. We'll give you a little preview of some retention work, and we'll come back and talk more retention later. But that's a good indication when you see that continuing number and that new number, both in the right direction. And one thing that I think is really critical to note is continuing students has been an area that has, like full-time, was a struggle during COVID, right? So reversing some trends that we have seen. And then overall, that relates then to the decline in part-time students. You see it being picked up in the full-time. Okay, so one thing that I mentioned I wanted to talk about is this idea of context. We talk a lot about, and you know, in the enrollment report, we always look at our year-over-year ranking. And when we look at that, it tells us, okay, we're sort of middle of the pack with our 2.4% increase this year. What that doesn't tell us, and what I think is sometimes quite problematic about that, because that's sort of the official SUNY data, what's put out, is they're doing a year-over-year comparison. So when they say that Broome Community College experienced an, 25% increase, what they're not doing is contextualizing that over 5 years, they've experienced an 11% or more decrease, right? So a number of schools that have had very, very significant decreases over a 5-year period might pop up in 1 year as having an increase, but it's an increase year over year after a steady decline. So you want to contextualize those things. In the addendum that I provided you, that's one thing that we've done new this year. And what it tells us is that other than Sullivan Community College has experienced about a 9% increase in enrollment during the last 5 years. Other than Sullivan, we have, with our 3.2% decrease, we are the top performing community college. And you've heard me say for several, presentations in a row, we're steady, right? We're really steady. We see areas of growth, we see areas of strategy, but where others went like this or like this, we went like this. And that means we're operating from a position of strength when we look at where we're going with our new strategic plan, where we're going coming out of COVID. And I think that's a really key piece that isn't clear in the SUNY publicized numbers, where it says, they had a 2.4% increase versus Broome that had, or Onondaga that had this huge increase this year. But when we contextualize it, what we see is we're really the top performing school. I will give Sullivan its props outside of Sullivan. There've been also some fairly significant demographic shifts in Sullivan. I don't know for sure that that's what's causing that, but Dr. Urbatis and I have talked about a bit about what's happening at Sullivan. There's a lot of population shift into the Sullivan community area during COVID outside of, with people from the city moving outside. So that may be contributing. So again, we're going to want to continue to watch that. How long does that maintain? Not that we wish them ill, we wish them well, of course. Okay, so moving on. One of the things that we always talk about with enrollment is, what does that look like for programs? So I have a couple of slides here that I want to talk through with you around program enrollment. So this is sort of our typical way of looking at it. What's our largest enrollment? What are our biggest programs, right? And this is excluding the liberal arts. The liberal arts degrees remain fairly steady. They've had some shifts between different tracks and things like that. They have experienced an overall decline during the 5 years, but they're fairly steady in the last year of enrollment, in the last couple of years, actually. But so here we see some of all of our biggest programs outside of those liberal arts. And I think that's interesting to look at, and we look at it every year, and it helps us sort of get a sense of what students are choosing. But I think it's also really important to look at what I like to say are programs that are worth watching, what's happening. And each one of these programs that I've put on here, and it's not every single program that experienced growth this year, there's something happening this year that we haven't seen in previous years. So let's take our chemical dependency counseling program. They had several years of decline in a row, an overall fairly large decline, and they had a significant increase in enrollment in what is overall a relatively small program to begin with, but they had a significant increase this year. So as a strategy person, that makes me say, is a strategy that we're employing working? Is there a strategy we haven't identified that we need to identify? How are we resourcing this? What is happening? And in the CDC program, in fact, there is a new sort of means of delivering some curriculum and outreach to students who are already have a bachelor's degree, but are not licensed to be in the chemical dependency counseling field. So it's a particular strategy. We need to watch that. We need to continue to look at that. Natural resource conservation falls into another one where you had sort of a steady decline, not dramatic, but a steady decline over a few years, but you have a significant increase this year. So that makes me want to say, what's happening? What are we doing here? Is it something that's replicable? Is it something that we want to continue to look at, and how can we support that? Another example here, theater arts and our AA music programs, smaller programs for sure, but they've actually shown an increase in the 5-year period, but a more significant increase in this last year. So they've been a little bit up, a little bit down over 5 years, but very significant in the last year. So those are areas that we're going to want to keep an eye on. And psychology I've put in here because that program has only been around for about 5 years, and it's been pretty steady with a large enrollment. You'll remember they're actually on this slide of
I was just going to
one of our largest enrollment programs, but they experience. It does not like.
Okay, well, I don't need it now, maybe like an hour.
But it experienced a large increase in this last year. So I categorized it here. There's a little art and science to the way we're doing this. So even though it's a large program, it had a jump. And what does that jump mean? What's going on? And what do we need to support it? What do we need to do to understand it? So these are things that the worth to watching raise and allow us to think about, and for Dr. Nye to work with cabinet, and in particular, Dr. Ortiz and Dr. Abedas to sort of dig in and think through that with the faculty in those programs. So moving on, sustained increases over the last 5 years. So these are programs that we really see sort of a sustained increase, sometimes small. Our American Sign Language program is not a huge program, right? But it's a sustained increase each year over that 5-year period, sometimes very large. Our networking cybersecurity program and our computer science program and our engineering science program have all at times experienced triple-digit increases in a single year, but in general are at a double-digit increase. Kinesiology and human performance, likewise, has experienced sort of steady but large increase over that 5-year period. And lastly, graphic design has, again, it's a somewhat smaller program in comparison to some of these others, but a steady increase over the last 5 years, and a fairly substantial increase in this last year. So that is interesting to look at. And when I look at it as a strategy person, I'm also analyzing it for, are there commonalities here? Are there things that are happening that there are lessons for us to think about broadly when we're supporting enrollment growth in other programs? And there is a common denominator here. Anyone want to make a guess as to what it is? As I put you on the spot because I've been a teacher for a long time. Any ideas?
Environmental, like not in the sense of like nature, but just
Like
why not?
what's going on in the world? I do think that that is a common denominator. There's some factors here with what you can get employed with, what skills are useful, right? Absolutely. Anyone else? So all of these, did someone over there want to? Oh, did you say COVID? Not wrong. Maybe it gets there. So one of the common denominators here is all of these programs offer accessible modalities. So Doesn't necessarily mean they're online, doesn't mean they're 100% online. But all of them, some of them starting in COVID graphic design, have moved to having more accessible modality for their overall programming. Graphic design is one of my favorite examples, and we see this, I think, also impacting fine arts, which has a smaller increase, but benefits from some shared courses there. Has a really interesting sort of approach to doing remote teaching or teaching with some synchronous, to use our term, synchronous online teaching, and allowing students to access instruction in multiple modalities or multiple ways. And that really does seem to be paying off, because we're not looking at 1 year of increase. We're really beginning to see multiple years of increase and steady enrollment in a program that previously was a little bit up and down. So those are some things to consider. American Sign Language also similarly, their increases have been larger as they've put more classes online. So they started multiple years ago, about 5 years ago, I think, actually, putting one course online at a time, another one online. So it isn't a sort of, oh, it's all done, but it's a gradual increase, and we're seeing enrollment impacted by that. So I think that's important as we're thinking about strategy and we're thinking about where we're going. It's not one or the other. It's not all online. It's that these programs are thinking about accessibility. One other example, which actually probably should be up there, is paralegal. And it's a really good example of this, because it was a program that we were really struggling with in terms of enrollment. We really, really had low enrollment. And we made a fairly bold decision, and you all were a part of making that decision, to no longer go after ABA accreditation. We'd always been ABA accredited as the paralegal program, and it's sort of a gold standard. However, they do not allow for a certain amount of online instruction. Although they've changed some of that, they basically want your programs to be face-to-face. So we made the decision to not continue with the accreditation. And the impact of that is triple-digit increase in enrollment, triple-digit, 173%, if I'm remembering correctly. Does that mean that everything should be online? It does not. It means that questions about accessibility and access around instruction are important, and in certain program areas can really make a difference for student enrollment, but also are ones that we want to think about and tease out and look at what does accessibility mean? What does that mean for instruction? What does that mean for opportunity? So they're questions that are raised, not answers. Okay. So the other thing that we do when we do this enrollment report is we look at our demographic breakdown. And you're going to see confirmation of some things that we've been seeing for a while. So one, we still have about 24% students of color. That is up significantly over a 5-year and 10-year time period, but it's been consistent the last couple of years. The Hispanic population or Latino population is increasing slightly, and that's an area for us to consider further, because it has been an area that we've been investing in and working on. So we're beginning to see some yield in that, but it's early, and we're only seeing a little bit of movement. So areas to continue to work on. Our Pell eligibility is up again. So Pell eligibility is in general a proxy for students who experience some degree of economic disadvantage and therefore become Pell eligible when they come in. And as I've talked to you about before, we do have a disproportional number of our students of color who are Pell eligible. That intersectionality is important to consider when we're thinking about student services. So students who are coming in as students of color and often as Pell eligible, they have a high need, and we want to make sure that we're meeting those needs. And that's a lot of what you've been learning about when Sarah Whiffen has come in particular, talking about those wraparound service programs. They're very much aimed at making sure that students with high need are getting the needs they need. That was well said. Are getting what they need as they progress and are more likely, therefore, to be retained. Residential location, this speaks very much to our surge in online programming. So by and large, our students come from our Fort County service area, which is talked about in multiple pages within the report. But we do see an increase in out of state. For the most part, that's displacing other New York counties, so outside of our service area. But it is very much an interesting trend and one that we are going to want to dig into more and watch as it goes forward. And online numbers, so students taking courses online continues to trend up, which is very much in light of the other things I mentioned today. Okay, so I put this slide in because I think it's really interesting just to talk a little bit about. So we have our different locations, but what we do see is some difference in who's enrolling at our different locations. And the two that I think are sort of the most interesting here are when we consider online a location. We see that number is 65% are taking at least one online course. That number was about 39 to 40% previously. That's a very big shift in taking at least one online course. And the other one is that at the Geneva Center, we have a very large number, percentage-wise, not N-wise, percentage-wise, of students of color, and in particular, the Latino population. It makes perfect sense. That's what that part of Ontario County has the largest number of Latino residents, but we're seeing that in our numbers, and it also presents the opportunity for further strategy and further conversation about what kind of supports are we providing, what kind of supports are appropriate, et cetera, as we continue to strive to meet the needs of that population, which is one of the fastest growing in the region. Okay, and I promised you we would end with a brief look at retention. And I'm really excited about this slide because for several years I've come here and said, our retention is down. It's most likely due to COVID. I was right. The full-time retention is back up above pre-COVID numbers. And it is not just a virtue of, hey, let's wait till this pandemic is done and it'll all fix itself. There has been incredibly good concerted work from faculty and staff around retention. And I think we will continue to see this. Now, I will be back at some point in the spring and we'll dig more into this when we dig into these retention numbers. But that is a very good movement. We still have a little work to go back to pre-COVID numbers on our part-time, but part-time does tend to be a little bit ebbing and flowing. So full-time is the main number, and it's the main number that's also reported when we report to SUNY, when we report to the U.S. Department of Ed, et cetera. That doesn't mean part-time students are not important, but it's important to know what people will say our retention rate is. So overall, this is an exciting movement, and I'm excited to dig into this now and look at where and who and what is comprising this. That will help us continue to think about the efforts we're doing about retention, what we should continue to do, where we need to continue to do work. So, questions?
Got a couple.
Yeah.
One is non-state aidable students
Mhm.
that are taking credentials, getting credentials for jobs.
They're not in this
They're
room.
not in this.
Yeah.
Are they tracked at all?
Yes, they are tracked. It's just not reported in this.
Okay.
They
Really?
are tracked heavily and reported on.
Okay. They seem to be invisible. I think it's particularly to the state of New York.
That is very true, although they do require us to give them copious amounts of data ad nauseam about them.
The other question, and I appreciate what you just did, because when I read through the report, it's all great, but it's looking in the rearview mirror.
Right.
What's it telling us? How's it going to inform the tactics for our strategies? And do you have any, when you look at the strategic plan, you kind of touched on programs, you touched on retention. What other aspects do you see it impacting? And do you have any examples of what you think might impact other aspects of the strategic plan?
Yes, I mean, this is a particular swath of data, so it only tells us certain
Right,
things, right? But I think this is very much informing us around opportunity and innovation. So when we think about access and modality, opportunity and innovation means, looking at those questions, but also making sure that we're providing our instructors, our faculty with the right kind of support to do that work, right? That's a big thing that Dr. Ortiz is beginning to really dig into. What does that look like? What is needed? I think it will also help us think about opportunities for recruitment outside of our county area. And Dr. Abetis is certainly already doing that. But what does that opportunity look like in these accessible modalities for recruitment in this out-of-state realm? When we think about programs, we have programs that have the potential to perhaps reach a different audience. And those are conversations we're going to want to have when we think about what programs we're developing or what different types of credentials we're looking at. So absolutely opportunity and innovation, it speaks to that. Clearly, it also speaks to student success, broad stroke. The retention numbers, I think, are particularly important when we're looking at the student success metric, and if you look at those metrics broadly, we look more at retention than we do these. But I think of that. And then the other item I'll mention while we're talking strategic plan is our third sphere is community and industry engagement. So when we look at some of these programs where we're having a lot of success, or we see hey, what's next for these programs or any of the programs I didn't highlight, right? One of the things I think we want to look at is, what does our community need? What does industry need? And that has to be part and parcel of the conversation we're having. These numbers help us begin to have that, but it also can help us think strategy. So I'll give you an example. Our criminal justice program, which is not up there anywhere, and it has experienced a fairly significant decline over a 5-year period. But we identified that a couple of years ago, right? That there was a decline that seemed more significant. And we started talking about, well, what does that mean? And Joe Mariconda, working with our chief, who's here in the room, and others, really sort of talked about, well, what are some of the things we could do? One of the net results of that has been bringing the police academy on campus, PLEA, as it's referred to. That's new, right? It's in a 1-year pilot. We're just getting the curriculum approved to get them into FTE. So we have to play that strategy out and see how that's working. But that's the type of thing we were able to identify. There's a community need. We know this program's important. It's not going to stop being important. So what's happening here with our access, with our availability, with our community connections that we need to think through? And I think the CJC program did a really admirable job of thinking through that. And now we have to see how that strategy plays out and continue to appropriately support it as we think through it and adjust it as needed. Helpful?
Very, very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I will adjourn this meeting at 5:33. Our next meeting is Wednesday, February 7th. Oh, sorry. Yep. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff. Second. Thank you, Joan. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right. Thank you.
Okay, and Jeff is going to run the meeting for, because Steve's not here tonight.
Okay, we'll call the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting for December 6th to order. First item of business is the review of November's minutes. Does anybody have any comments or questions on that? Okay. If not, the chief has been patiently sitting over here. And is going to talk to us about the annual security and fire report. Chief?
Good afternoon, good evening.
Good evening.
So I have for you the annual security report, which is 2023, but it's actually for all the statistics of 2022. We did back in June of this year, send letters out to all the jurisdictions that have services from our campus or on-campus residential facilities, public property with our campus or non-campus sites to get back statistics for the Clery. Those are just some definitions that are used in the Clery Act. And then I think I've included 2020 statistics for you, which is also in the security report, and then 2021. So you can compare them to 2022. And I remember being here last year and not having a lot of changes from 2020 to 2021. And similarly, we don't have a lot of changes to 2022. No significant real change up or down in any of the reporting. There was no Part 1 crimes. There were no Part 1 crimes. And there were some slight increase in weapons law referrals and a decrease in liquor law referrals, and we remained constant in the drug law referrals. And as far as the Violence Against Women Act, it was very similar to the years before. So as I presented this to Dr. Nye and some of the cabinet members last month, I was asked, what are we doing to try to keep ahead of the increasing enrollment we're going to be experiencing? We're coming out of COVID. There's more mental illness issues going on in the world today. The acts of violence that are increasing around the country. So we're just going to put together a list of some things we have been doing and will be doing. It's not conclusive. It's just some things I wanted to outline. One of the things is training for the officers, very important. We do a lot of training, and we look for the most cutting edge training we can find in the field. So they have the most current information and certain topics that we feel they need to have. So just to outline a few of those things, we do annual firearms training, defensive tactics training, CPR, AED. Those are all qualification trainings. We have to prove that we're proficient in those areas. All our officers now have received alert training, which is an advanced law enforcement rapid response training to active shooter. It's a hands-on training. It's reality-based. It's very much as real as we can make it. And that is provided by the Ontario County Sheriff's Office and members of other law enforcement in the area. 4 of our officers have received autism awareness training. I hope to send more officers once that becomes available this year. While 2 of our officers and myself, who had previously had crisis intervention training, but 2 of our officers have that training now, and we're hoping to send more officers to that in the spring. That is dealing with mental illness as well as emotional disturbance or anything that can be related to that area, and how to de-escalate situations and make situations better without having to maybe use force or use an arrest or something like that. Very good training. It's 40 hours. It's taught by mental health professionals and law enforcement officers that are versed in it. Not only do we get our officers trained in that, many of us participated as role players for them. So even though we weren't all getting the training, being part of it was seeing the training and being part of the other end of it. So that was very good. We're going to try to do that again this spring. 2 of our officers this year in June received hostage and crisis negotiation training. So they are certified hostage negotiators, with the emphasis on crisis negotiating, because we really don't expect too many hostage situations, but that can happen. But we're more looking for how do we talk ourselves out of a crisis. And they both successfully completed that training. Involves some role playing and some demonstrating of their skills at a high level. They will also continue that training, because if you don't keep those skills fresh, you will lose them. So 4 officers, myself including 3 others, have had disability awareness training for law enforcement. This is a program out of Niagara University run by a friend of mine actually, who teaches disability awareness specifically to first responders and law enforcement. It's a class where they took this up at the Monroe County Community Training Center. Not only do they have the awareness training, they became train the trainers. So we're going to have the other officers that took this course and develop their instructional skills and have them teach the rest of the unit. So that's one of the things that I'm excited about. We have also kept up on our implicit bias training. Our latest recruit went to the police academy and attended that and received that training. All of our officers have had that training in the past. Some of us have had online theory training to try to keep up with some of the new things that are coming out there. And July 26th, last summer, we did a multi-jurisdictional exercise. That was requested by Dr. Nye, and that included the college, the Canandaigua Police Department, our office, the New York State Police, and the Ontario County Sheriff and Canandaigua Police. That was very successful. We did get some lessons learned, and we did find some things we needed to work on, such as our emergency notification system and some other systems of communication. But those bugs have been starting to be worked out, and we're on the way to improving that very well. Some of the other things we're working on, some training for staff, faculty in active shooter, what to do in the case of an active shooter situation. Maybe some practice drills in the future and some workshops we hope to hold in addition to some opening days training for the staff. We have, as soon as we can complete the order for our ammunition and equipment, which has been on hold for a while. There's been a hard time getting that program going. We will be having that training hopefully in the spring or summer. Okay, we ran into a snag with how we were registered and how we had to order the rifles. So we had to work that out with the ATF. It took a few months. By the time we were able to make the order, we were told everything was on back order 12 months to 18 months. So we do have the rifles. We just don't have the ammunition. We can't train without the ammunition. We're hoping to have it in March. That's our goal.
Yeah.
We do have 2 officers who are certified, so that'll speed the process up a little bit. They will just need to qualify instead of go through a complete training program. So that'll get 2 on the streets right away, but then we'll have to get everyone else trained. We are now part of the Ontario County Threat Assessment Team as the college. It's an initiative that was started in January. We are training campus police officers and administrators in threat assessment. As of the end of this month, we will have approximately 15 people trained in threat assessment. That's an exciting program. As Dr. Orloff mentioned, we have the Finger Lakes Law Enforcement Academy that was here. 35 recruits started the program, 32 graduated. And I thought it was a positive thing for the college. It actually improved our security profile quite a bit, having them here and having their instructors here. So it served a lot of different purposes. Those instructors are also law enforcement officers from this area who now get to become more familiar with our building. So that was a win-win, in addition to all the other things that Dr. Orloff mentioned. We hope that we can work that out to have that return. Their next academy is scheduled to start on February 12th of 2024. So something that didn't make my presentation is restorative justice training, which I started doing last week. We finished up that Friday with a group of administrators from here. That's been a very interesting training, and I hope to see how that develops here at the college as well. Are there any questions?
Any comments or questions?
Just a quick question, Chief. Yeah, I think you just had a meeting with students a few days ago, a week ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because Student Corp.
Yes.
And they've been very complimentary of how you handled the incident that was in here.
Okay.
But I just wondering what you're hearing from students. What is the, are you learning anything from the students? What, how are they impacting your work
In terms of anything specific or just in general?
in general?
So students, after we had, I believe, the incident you're talking about, came to me and they felt very good about everything.
Yeah.
They were, in fact, I teach a couple classes here at the college too, and I taught a class that day. I didn't cancel class. I went into class and they were all there waiting for it. So I think that overall, they have been doing these drills, lockdown, lockout, shelter in place, evacuation drills since they've been in kindergarten, right? So they kind of get it. Didn't impact them as much as I think anyone else might have been impacted and isn't exposed to that, right? But no, I think that the overall overwhelming response was positive, and students seem to be reacting pretty well to that.
Do you feel like there's good relationship?
I think so.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Good.
I mean, our office is an open door. We have a lot of community engagement with the students. I encourage it. I do it myself. We told the group the other day that we are more like school resource officers than we are police officers, and we want them to know that. And they do that. They do know that. So
It's good to hear.
thanks for asking.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? If not, thanks very much.
Thank you for having me.
Next up is the budget update and finance report. Jason?
Good evening, this is as of October 31st, the budget review. Enrollment's up, so tuition's up, revenue's up, so that helps us. As you look at expenses, we're in line with where we were last year. The one big jump you'll see is in supplies and expenses, and that's just a function of us recognizing our concurrent enrollment scholarships earlier in the year as the revenue is booked. So in the past, we've waited until after the semester is finished and then we will book it. So we're doing it in real time this year, and I think we actually started it last spring semester. So that's why you see the big jump. It's about $850,000 when you look at that scholarship line. So that's all of our Gemini programs where we recognize the revenue and then we scholarship the full revenue. So is there any other questions on the budget or the actuals?
Any other comments or questions?
Not really.
The only other update from a finance perspective, we're working through the audit for 831. The auditors are doing field work now, this week and next week. So we are working with them to get through some of the 831 balances. So so far we're providing them the information that's needed, and we're working through that with Don and Davis.
Resolutions?
The one resolution was to authorize the approval of a contract for the repairs caused by the flooding event back in July of 2023. This contract is with CP Ward, who is on emergency contract bid notifications with the county. So we can piggyback on that contract in order to meet the requirements to get the work done. They actually started that contract this week, and we're continuing to work through with FEMA on the paperwork process to get this all worked through and approved. So
The only question I had was, is any of this particular work eligible for any of the additional funding that will come to some of the communities?
there is potential. I think right now that's where we're going with FEMA as we were declaring
Okay.
an emergency
So
disaster.
You're
So,
working on it.
yeah, we're working
Okay.
with FEMA on that, and finalizing that paperwork. So it's a bureaucratic system, so it takes a little bit to get through the paperwork. So
Yeah, I think.
Okay, any comments or questions on that item? If not, next item is FLCC College and the FLCC Grade Union.
Yeah, so this was just an update as far as where we stand with that. So I know we presented some information the last meeting. Nothing's changed from that meeting, just more of a working through with the final ratification of that agreement with union leads. We've sent all the changes that we talked about in the last meeting as a contract to them to review and get their final sign off. So hopefully we'll be bringing that to the next meeting to have that fully signed. So
Okay,
I just wanted to update the board on that.
yeah, thanks. Any comments or questions? If not, any other items that you want us to bring up? I'll entertain that favorite motion.
I'll move.
Second. Second, Rich. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We're adjourned.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 5:50. I would suggest perhaps we just go on with the meeting. We do have an executive session tonight, and at the conclusion of our meeting, we could let the staff go if it doesn't have to stay for an executive session. No reason to make their meeting any longer. Therefore, I don't see any objections. All right. Therefore, I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Board of Trustees of Finger Lakes Community College for today, December 6th. The first item on the agenda will be the public comment. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to the board this evening? Is there anyone?
I think the agenda needs to be amended though, because there's no executive session on here. Unless I have an old one.
Yeah.
And one minute.
We have an old.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, Santa.
Disregard.
No one for public comment? All right, then I will move on to approve the consent agenda, minutes and resolutions. Can I have, do I need to do this first one?
You just do it.
I can do them all together, yeah.
Resolution.
Right,
So.
yeah. Can I?
Move second.
Thank you. We have, Todd moved,
George
George
second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, consent agenda is approved. Any old business? I don't have any. Does anyone have any old business? New business? I don't have any new business. No one has any new business. President's report? Can I?
I'll let George take the thunder on the advocacy. That was part of my report, but I want to highlight a couple of things. Master Facilities Planning, the next meeting is December 18th. We're hoping to have some of the estimates of what has been provided in terms of thought process for the initial spaghetti throwing onto the wall from initial input, that afterwards, in January, February timeframe, that plan will be submitted to the public community and our constituents of the college for input at that point in time. So it's really just a starting point. It's to get to the very initial starting point with some idea of what things will look like. And I believe there'll be a set of prioritizations for high importance, mid importance, and to do a possible type of activity. So we're looking forward to getting that, and then hopefully, not hopefully, but in reality, getting it out to the college here in January, February timeframe. Bree's not here tonight. She has another event that I asked her to go to support the college and do part of our community engagement. But it is exciting to know that the Mueller Foundation has provided 1.65 million to create and build the bunkhouse, to create a 24-hour operation for the Mueller Center. When you add the match from SUNY, it's over $3 million, and it could be a wonderful project once it gets done. So we're really thankful for all of the great work that the Conservation Department has done to build such a strong connection to the Mueller family to be able to get this accomplished. They've been doing phenomenal work over the past several years and expanding the presence out in the community and the activities out at the Mueller Center. So really excited for that. And I just wanted to let the board know that we're getting ready to really truly kick off the Board of Trustees strategic grant plan process. The application and notification is out to the public, and we have a session Friday next week with the committee of the 2+2 committee, which will screen the applications and then go through the governance process for review, where college council and governance exec will see them before submission to you. And we're looking forward to having a session for your approval of grants for the spring semester. The board approved, as a reminder, $400,000 if the initial 1 million of the board grant, and then there's $500,000 from the COVID stimulus funds that are available for the first cut. Now, we're really hopeful that next year we'll do 2 sessions, 1 a semester, so that it's more iterative and you don't have to wait a full year to be able to bring some good ideas to the forefront for your approval to help with the vitality of the college, which is what we talked about earlier tonight. And finally, we can finally put this out publicly that we were approved for just under $1 million of a Department of Agriculture grant to be able to get our technology out to our schools and rural communities in 4 different counties for us to be able to get our presence out further. They'll be linked to mental health, to credit programs, non-credit programs, and linked to community type of centers, specifically in high schools, to be able to help get our presence out in much farther locations. So that was just announced today, and both Senator Schumer and Gillibrand put out a notice. So really excited about that.
Congratulations.
That's my report.
Liaison reports, Nina did send something in writing. Jeff also submitted something in writing. Do you have anything to add, Jeff? Or
No,
Mary?
we're just gonna have a committee meeting tomorrow afternoon.
Mhm. All are welcome. Board development, Donna is not here, but do you have anything you'd like to add, Santa?
Yep, we had a pretty good, productive meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we will be sharing and presenting some information and a policy or 2 at the next board retreat.
Thank you. Association, Dan, do you have anything else to add?
No, just the report to Daga.
Yeah, just, okay, and does anybody have any questions on that? Okay, Rob has talked about the Mueller grant. Donna is not here, and George, do you have an NYCCT?
There is stuff in here.
Yes,
Was that submitted by Donna?
yes. Yeah.
So there is the recap of the conference in Saratoga Springs. And it was a very, very well attended. It was a great conference. We had a unbelievable wine sommelier representing
Untrained, but
FLCC.
gets trained.
And we also had we did for all of the trustees, we had the goggles and
Right, very.
and I gotta tell you, some of these folks got up there, they were blown away. They were just completely blown away. Couldn't even imagine what they were seeing.
Mhm.
So it was great. We also, we started a conversation with the chancellor. And we had earlier in the day, we had a student group up there, and they had gotten the flyers. They're attached to this. And I think you've all seen the flyers. And the chair of the Education Committee, Pat Fahey, was there, a legislator. And one of the students started to talk about the inequities and on the piece of paper. And Pat literally looked at the paper one of the other students was handing, ripped it out of his hand and said, "Let me see that." So it was kind of amazing, but so we had a discussion with the chancellor following that. And we expressed that, to quote one of our other trustees, we're not feeling the love. And it was made very clear to him that we felt that there wasn't a 2-way communication with the SUNY Board of Trustees. And he took action on it, and we had a meeting with the SUNY Board of Trustees. I would say it wasn't, it didn't feel that good when we had it, because they more or less wanted us to understand that we loved them, that we didn't understand the love. But what did come out of it was, subsequently, there was a president's meeting, and Merrill Tisch and the chancellor attended that meeting, right, Rob? And I think Dunphy did. And you might just indicate what you kind of got from that.
I think that the chancellor has heard from trustees, and it was very helpful that you had that additional session with them and still demonstrated that the trustees are not satisfied with the level of support from SUNY. What the chancellor had addressed with the presidents a few months back before we really started gearing up for the advocacy and we were just getting started was if you could do something that was linked to workforce development, because it's high on the governor's list, that he would be able to support that. So we've gone almost full circle because originally we weren't even supposed to talk about operating aid as part of that prospect, to the discussion with the chancellor, understanding if they want more workforce development. And when we talk about workforce development, we're talking credit, non-credit, we're talking all students within the community colleges. And that if you want to grow programs and you want to have more students in them, it takes more resources, more faculty, and more things to do. So I think that he realizes that workforce development now is operational aid for all of our programs. And he indicated support as we continue to refine the product. And I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that $97 million flyer and what that means and how we're working that.
Right, and I think we have, I don't know if we can get this up on there on the screen, but the flyer is attached.
Yeah.
There's two flyers. And the
Is there a
first,
flyer, George, or? No, it's in the packet.
in the packet,
It's the one that was in the packet. Okay,
yeah, that's the one with the students on it that has the
Right.
the inequities. We reviewed that. That's kind of states the problem. And we're still utilizing that. I think I don't think that the SUNY Board of Trustees wants this to get that public. So that's okay. As you know, as long as they're wanting to work with us, I think that's fine. The presidents took the problem and worked on a solution, which is the other one that's on there, and that's the Empire State Community College Workforce Guarantee. And that really kind of states what the colleges are committing to, which is to develop 20,000 students career ready. And that's what we do. We do that with everything. That's not a new program that we need to add on without having the infrastructure to support it. So the 97 million really helps to address, I think, and Rob, you referred to it, it addresses a lot of the infrastructure that we need just to get students through so they can be career ready. So it's not trying to add another program to an already threadbare administration to do this. So the 97 million really represents, and that 97 million raises the floor to a new operating level. And that's what we're asking for. We'll see if this comes through in the governor's state of the state, which is in early January. But the 97 million represents the difference between what the counties contribute versus what the state contributes, and brings them even. So that was the whole rationale behind that. But having this, if you look at on the flyer, the investment impact, and Dr. and I covered a lot of this, but hire and retain faculty and staff. It's a major component for what we do. And the startup costs for new programs. I mean, we get no support from the state to do those new programs. We have to raise the money independently. It's very, very difficult to do. We had one of the SUNY board members suggest to us we need to go out and get grants. And I'm thinking to myself, well, there's two problems with that. One is we don't have a grants office really, like in a traditional sense. We don't have that kind of, and we don't have the infrastructure to manage the grant. We need this money is so essential for community colleges to move forward. So there is a letter that the presidents are coordinating to send out to employers in their service areas. And we're requesting they use that as a template and send the governor, the chancellor, everybody and their brother a copy of that letter stating support for this program. So that's the first step. Getting the employers behind this, again, ties right directly with the workforce. We plan to involve students as we move forward. We'd love to get work with the faculty to move in that direction to support it. Certainly, as many voices as we can. The 300 trustees in the state of New York aren't enough voices to make this uncomfortable enough to move on. So that's kind of the crux of that. The one other update on NICET that I'll add is that we had a good meeting with CUNY this past week, and CUNY is coming into NICET. So we're bringing them in. They have a little different funding model. They still get money from the state. So they're right in there with us. We're planning on potentially doing a roundtable workshop. Most of the legislators, besides Pat Fahey, all the rest of them are based in the city. So this really gives us a way to get to those folks to help to educate them on the differences, because they don't understand. And it's not their fault. They just don't understand that it's a difference between a 2-year and a 4-year college. So, Dr. Nye, did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered it all. We're looking for, like you said, starting off with businesses first with that letter to businesses, because that's what we have agreed upon, the trustees, presidents, and with SUNY, is the most important part to get to the governor right now. And when we find out what is in her plan in January, then we're going to really saturate the rest of the community, faculty, staff, students, the communities. And then depending what happens, move forward more with the equity issue than the workforce.
Exactly. Yeah, it's exciting times. I don't think most folks can't remember this much optimism and that we can maybe make something happen here. Count the chickens when they hatch, but it's moving in a great direction. And I just can't. There's what's gone to a bi-weekly meeting now with several of the presidents and the government relations committee, and it's a really good meeting. Even the presidents say this is my favorite meeting, this because it's really, we get stuff done, and it's and the level of cooperation that really we can trace back to Donna Mihalik and all the work that she did is really going to a level that it's never been between the trustees and the president. So we're on the same page. Good. It's all good stuff.
Thank you, George. Any more questions for George? Comments? All right, then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to ask for a motion to go into executive session. We'll move into executive session, and when we are done, we will come back to the regular meeting and adjourn to the regular meeting. So at this time, I would like to move to an executive session to discuss matters regarding the collective negotiation, Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, New York Public Officers Law, Article 7105E. So Mark Santa, thank you. A second. Okay, all in favor? All right, now in executive session. The rest